In a cold university town in northern Europe, Liane Shiraz, a woman in her late 20s, lives her life among archives, maps, and manuscripts. Since the age of 17, she has lived alone after her father mysteriously disappeared in an expedition forest. Liane is no ordinary person, she possesses an exceptionally analytical mind, but deep within her lies a tinge of sadness that doesn't show on her measured face. Her room is filled with old photographs, maps hanging on the walls, and drawers full of her father's notebooks. Every evening, she would return to one of these notebooks and read it carefully, searching for a missing clue. One winter day, as she walked toward her office inside an old university building, she saw a small brown parcel. It bore no stamp or sender's name. But she knew the symbol stamped on the front, an eye inside a tree branch. She had seen this symbol in her father's favorite necklace, and now, 12 years after its disappearance, it had reappeared. Liane felt that something had changed, as if the wind itself was warning of an approaching storm. In the old university library, Liane sat alone. Her hands were slightly trembling as she opened the package. Inside was a carefully folded piece of paper, and a small message written in her father's handwriting. When you read among the shadows, you will know the truth. The coded note wasn't written in ink, but in a pattern of tiny, barely visible holes. She used a special flashlight and precise analytical tools to decipher it, until the letters began to appear one by one. The text read, "I am alive, but I am not the same. The forest changes who enters it. Do not come if you are not prepared to lose yourself." Beneath the note were precise coordinates pointing to a location in a forest known as Black Crow Wood. An uninhabited area that had been closed off militarily for decades. Liane sat stunned. The note was real, the handwriting was her father's, and the code was beyond doubt. She felt her heart beating with something she hadn't known in years, hope mixed with fear. Liane returned to her small apartment and took out a wooden box she'd kept under her bed. This box contained all of her father's diaries, which he had collected throughout his life as an anthropologist. She began leafing through the diaries, stopping at one dated a year before his disappearance. In it, he spoke of the legend of the Forest of the Seven Temples, describing it as more than just a place. It is a living mind, judging those who enter it through 7 gates, each one connected to a part of their soul. He also wrote, each temple is opened not with keys, but with confession. You will be forced to see what you denied, hear what you've buried inside, and feel what you've been running from your whole life. Liane read the lines in disbelief. These weren't scientific observations, but confessions, as if her father were writing from a moment of altered consciousness. Suddenly, she wondered, did he really venture into this forest? Did he come back and send me this letter? And why now? Liane wasn't one to hesitate. That same night, she began packing her backpack, gathering climbing gear, a digital compass, thermal imaging cameras, an emergency flashlight, books on ancient symbolic languages, and a small pistol she'd been hiding for years. She knew official entry into the area was impossible, so she decided to sneak in from the eastern side of the forest, where an old, abandoned settlement had been located. It had been abandoned for 50 years after a series of mass disappearances. As old reports had described it. She needed an expert guide. She called an old friend, Jorn, a man in his 40s who had spent his life traveling the forests as a professional hunter. He was an expert in forbidden and hidden routes. He met her in a cafe, and after she read the letter, there was a deep silence. "I've heard about this forest," he said in a low voice. "No one talks about it openly, because once you've gone, you never come back." Liane knew the journey could take days, maybe weeks, and that she would need a team with special skills. She contacted Zaina, a brave and adventurous Lebanese archaeologist who believes in symbols and dead languages, Rafael, a Mexican documentary photographer known for his boldness in covering dangerous places, Aziz, a Tunisian expert in ancient symbols and rituals, a quiet man with a deep gaze. The team met in a border town, exchanged information, and discussed the plan. Jorn explained the route and asked them to remain silent in the forest and not respond to any strange sounds. On the first night, while planning, they heard faint whispers coming from outside. No one was there. As the sun rose, the team walked silently into the forest. It was cold, but the forest itself was eerie, no birds, no sounds, just a heavy, alive silence. After about 2 hours of walking, the fog began to thicken. The compass began to move illogically, as if the place refused to be understood. The map no longer matched what they were seeing, the trees were unnaturally tall, tangled, and lacked light. Each tree had a slanted mouth, as if whispering. Raphael said with a laugh, "It's like we're walking into the belly of a monster." Lien didn't laugh. In the middle of the forest, they found a stone statue emerging from the ground. It was a huge hand, bearing symbols on each finger. Aziz translated the symbols as the signs of the 7 guardians. When Lien touched the statue, she saw a surprising sight. She was 6 years old, in the same room where her father had disappeared, bidding her farewell. But in the scene, there was a woman standing in the shadows, her mother. No, her face wasn't clear. Zaina said she felt the statue, looking at her, that it saw something inside her. That night, Raphael left his tent without realizing it, and returned 2 hours later, remembering nothing except a voice saying, "You are not alone in this body." The next day, they found a new path through the fog. It hadn't been there the day before. They walked until they reached a massive stone structure, shaped like a curved door, engraved with interlocking symbols. Each one felt something different. Zina saw her dead brother's name on the wall. Raphael heard the voice of his mother, whom he hadn't seen since childhood. Jorn suddenly began to cry for no reason. Lien saw herself in the mirror, but the image didn't quite resemble her. Aziz read the inscriptions. "This is the first of the temple, the gateway to facing the past. Only those who acknowledge it, pass through." The door opened slowly, and in a silent moment, each one separated from the other, entering different passages, toward unpredictable individual encounters. Inside the structure, everyone was mysteriously separated, as if the structure itself had sucked them into separate worlds. Lien wakes up alone inside a stone room containing nothing but a mirror covered in black, an old wooden chair, and a clock ticking but with no hands. She tries to leave, but the door is locked. Suddenly, she hears a soft voice behind her, her father's. "How long can you ignore the truth?" When she removes the cover from the mirror, she doesn't see her reflection. Instead, she sees a little girl crying in a corner. It's Lien herself, at the age of 8, and the memory begins to return. Lien is pulled into the mirror and finds herself in her childhood home, the night her father disappeared. She sees her younger self crying while her mother and father argue in the next room. She previously believed her father left them voluntarily, but in this memory, she sees the truth: "I'm not coming back. If I go into this forest, I'll bury who I am, but if I don't, no one will ever know the truth." Her father tells her mother. He leaves the house, looking back at little Lien, but Lien pretends to be asleep. The moment he leaves, Lien feels immense regret. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't open the door for him. In the real room, she collapses to the floor, whispering, "He was waiting for me to stop him. But I ignored him." Raphael wakes up in a room covered in photographs. All the photographs depict faces he knows, people whose suffering he has documented on his travels, the poor, refugees, war-wounded. But he notices something strange. In every photograph, he appears in the background, smiling. He hears a woman's voice. "Were you documenting pain? Or were you feeding off it?" Doubt begins to creep into his heart. Was he just a tourist in other people's worlds? Did he use people's suffering to build a reputation for himself? The photographs suddenly crumble into smoke, and he is besieged by voices demanding that he explain why he didn't help them. Finally, his mother's face appears. He says, "She never looked at us. You were just holding the camera." Raphael collapses, and for the first time, he wishes he had lived a life without a lens. Zaina finds herself in an archaeological museum, filled with undiscovered artifacts. But she notices something strange. All the exhibits have her name written underneath them, as if she had stolen them. A back door opens, and she finds herself in an ancient scene. A Bedouin tribe, with whom she had worked on one of her trips, has accused her of stealing sacred amulets. Unable to defend herself at the time, she chooses to remain silent for fear of being expelled. In this scene, she sees them crying. They accuse her of betrayal, and the cry of a small child begins to pierce her mind. She now realizes, her quest for knowledge has been swept away by vanity. Bjorn sees only a forest, but it's not the forest he knows. It's the forest where he lived with his brother when they were young. The sound of his brother's screams rings in his ears. When they were separated in the storm, Bjorn never admitted the truth. He was the one who left his brother in the forest. He told everyone they had strayed together, but in reality, he was frightened by a strange noise and ran, without looking back. Now, he hears the same noise and sees his brother lying in the trees, covered in snow. His voice hollowly says, "You ran away, and you left me." Tears stream down Bjorn's face for the first time since childhood, and he cries, "I was scared, so scared. Forgive me." In a central room within the temple, they all meet again. Each one looks changed. Their faces are calm. But not the same. Aziz enters late, carrying a stone book he found in the heart of the temple. The book bears the same symbol as the first parcel, the eye within the branch. He reads from the book, "The first temple revealed the first scar. Whoever lies about their past will not be able to cross the next." Then he says in a strange voice, "The second temple will only admit those who have faced its shadow." It seems as if something else is speaking through him. Before they can leave the temple, a series of earthquakes occur. The walls begin to shake, and the doors disappear. Zaina screams that something is following them, while Raphael hears whispers repeating, "It's not over yet." Bjorn leads them through a narrow tunnel, filled with symbols that glow as they pass. At the end of the tunnel, a white light appears, and upon passing through, they find themselves in an empty clearing in the middle of the forest. But the time is different. The sunlight is dim, the birds are missing, and the plants themselves seem to be watching them. The forest has changed. As they try to process what they've been through, Lien discovers that her right hand now bears a circular red mark that wasn't there before. The others are surprised to find that the same mark appears on all of them, in different forms. Aziz opens the book again and reads, "The first mark means you've survived, but it also means you're being watched." In the center of the courtyard, a smooth stone appears, engraved with the words, "The second temple, the mirror of the soul." But where is it? No one knows. Then the wind whispers, "He who sees himself clearly will die, or be reborn." The chapter ends as they look toward the forest, which has begun to stir. At the beginning of the next day, the team wakes up to find the forest completely transformed. No sunlight, no sky, just a thick gray fog that rises to knee-deep ground. The trees are covered in a transparent, sticky layer that reflects light like glass. Zaina wipes something off a tree trunk and is surprised to see her face reflected in the trunk, her face, but it's crying. Then she hears a familiar voice, "Do you know how much you've lied to yourself?" Before she can respond, the voice disappears, but they all hear it. The same voice, for each of them. Raphael is dragged through a tree-lined path into a completely white void, where there is nothing but a circular mirror. When he approaches it, he sees not himself, but another Raphael. This other Raphael is unsmiling, looks exhausted, and holds a camera, but it is broken. He tells him, "Every moment you spent being photographed was a moment you didn't live." He accuses him of escaping his loneliness, his loss, his failed relationships through the camera. It has become his shield, his escape. Then the other reaches out toward him, and with a single touch, the mirror shatters, and Raphael falls to the ground, drowning in tears. He hasn't cried since the death of his younger brother. Zaina enters a room made of books and papers, as if knowledge itself has become walls. The mirror here resembles an open book, each page reflecting a different face of herself, an arrogant face, a terrified face, a power-hungry face. Her late mother appears in the reflection, saying to her, "You thought knowledge protected you, but it didn't stop you from being selfish." Zaina sits on the floor, shouting, "But I was searching for the truth." But the truth was that she wanted recognition, more than knowledge itself. Bjorn enters a cold cave. There is a small fire, and beside it, a child. The child is his dead brother, but with eyes burning with blame. The mirror here isn't a glass mirror, but a still lake. When he looks into it, he sees himself running. Running without looking back. He hears his brother's voice, "If only I were back. If only I were back." Jorn walks into the lake, which turns to ice. He begins to collapse, whispering, "Forgive me. I was weak." He embraces the child. And the ice melts. Lien enters a huge hall, filled with hundreds of mirrors. In each one, a different reflection of herself, the scared child, the angry teenager, the stern woman, the trusting scientist. Then she sees a covered mirror. When she uncovers it, she sees something she didn't expect, her mother, but not as a memory. Rather, as a moving, speaking image. Her mother tells her, "You hated me because I didn't stop him from leaving, but you were, like me, afraid to know the truth." The mirror shatters, but her mother's voice continues, "The truth is too heavy to bear alone, Lien." Aziz enters a room made of pure glass. There isn't a single mirror, all the walls are mirrored. But, no reflection appears. He is alone, without a shadow, without an image. He walks, wondering, "Who am I, without what I know?" Then a phrase appears engraved on one of the walls, "You are the one who doesn't trust his own face, because he has seen so many other people's faces." He then slowly sees his own face emerge, but it's an old face, its features altered. Suddenly, the wall shatters, and a portal of light opens. The team regroups at the center of the forest. Each of them seems to have lost something, and gained something. Lien holds Raphael's hand. Zaina puts her hand on Yorn's shoulder. Everyone is silent. A circle of stones appears before them, with a single, giant mirror in the center. The mirror reflects them all, but behind them, a huge shadow appears, something inexplicable. Aziz looks at the shadow and says, "The mirror didn't break, we woke it up." Before they leave the area, they hear a collective voice saying, "You have crossed over, but you are not the same now." Then the ground opens at a certain point, and a stone staircase descends. On the walls is an inscription that reads, "The third temple is not a place, but a question." The group decides to descend. The steps are slow, the air is heavy, and the further they descend, the more their names begin to fade from their memory. At the end of the staircase, a metal door opens, and on its wall is written in blood, "He who does not know his name, will not know himself." As they enter the third temple, everyone feels the same, gradually forgetting their names, then their jobs, and even some details about their lives. One of them tries to speak, saying, I. Then he falls silent, as if the words themselves have escaped him. Lien begins drawing a symbol on her hand to remember. Raphael quickly writes something on the wall, but the letters disappear as if erased from the world. Aziz opens the stone book and finds it empty of words. A deep female voice, heard by all, says, "If you are not what you knew, then who are you?" Each of them is separated again by interlocking passages. In this maze, there are no actual walls, just black voids, in which light occasionally reflects, revealing copies of themselves. But these copies behave in strange ways. They smile when they shouldn't, they cry when jokes are told, they utter unknown words. Each character is forced to follow a copy of themselves, and eventually they face a question written on the wall: is what you see you, or what you expect to be? In a large hall, they meet again, but instead of their names, different symbols are written on their chests, in glowing lines. No one knows the meaning of their symbol, but each of them feels something inside that belongs to them. In the middle of the hall, an old loudspeaker plays a recording of each of their voices. They speak thoughts they've never spoken before, buried confessions, as if the temple has penetrated their minds. Raphael hears himself say, "If one of them dies in the forest, I'd take a picture of him first, not save him." Astonishment fills the room. Then a light appears in the center of the hall, and a voice rises, "Who are you?" Answer. Without words, they are asked to act out their characters without voice, without language, only with actions. Each character is given a sealed envelope. Inside is a completely black photo, along with a note that reads, "This is your real photo." They think it's a hoax, but Lien notices that the photo is emitting heat. Zaina holds the photo close to her chest, and suffers a panic attack. Unknown memories, as if from another life, assail her. She sees herself in places she doesn't remember visiting, with strangers. They realize that the photos reveal layers of their psyches they haven't yet discovered. They are all led into an all-white room, with no doors, no windows, and no sound. They spend what feel like days there, but there is no hunger, no thirst, and no sleep. They begin talking to themselves, then to inner voices. Each of them sees writing suddenly appear on the walls, with a different definition of identity. Identity is what remains of you after you have taken off everything you have worn. Identity is not who you are, but who you cannot not be. Then, writing in red appears on one of the walls. Your true name is not what they gave you, but what you chose under the most difficult moment. After that experience, a mysterious door opens. On the threshold, each person is asked to choose a new name, and not just a name, but an adjective that expresses their newly discovered self. Raphael chooses light and shadow, Zaina chooses the confused pulse, Yorn chooses he who fell and stood up, Layan chooses the voice of the unheard, Aziz chooses the mirror of fire. When they pronounce their new names, they are automatically engraved on the walls of the temple, and the wall glows with a blue glow. Suddenly, their features disappear. Their faces become transparent, their voices heard only within each other. They enter a heightened state of mind, where they exchange memories directly, without words. Each one sees the other's pain, without a filter, without lying. I'm not alone. Jorn cries, finally, someone hears me. This merging makes them realize that as a group they have become something new, a unified entity, more than just individuals. As they exit the temple, they find the forest has changed again. But this time, it's not terrifying, more like a vivid dream. The trees groan mournfully, the birds whisper human words, and the air is thick with a scent unlike anything in the real world. A new path appears, fraught with symbols they've seen before. Then a stone tablet appears, the fourth temple, where words die, and truths begin. The team reaches a massive stone gate covered in a layer of fine ash. Above it is engraved, what can be said, is not understood. And what is understood, is not said. As soon as one of them says the word enter, aloud, a stone hand emerges from the ground and pulls a blue thread from his head, like a thought being plucked out. Lien shouts, do not speak, but that same shout brings punishment. From that moment, the door closes on them, and the fourth temple begins. Inside the temple, there is no sound. Even footsteps cannot be heard. The air is thick, as if movement itself requires effort. Raphael sees symbols on the wall moving slowly, as if they are dissolving, but they send a feeling deep inside his chest. He suddenly feels regret, then longing, then caution. Without hearing or reading anything, Zaina holds Yorn's hand. And she feels all his feelings at once. Fear, loneliness, anger, everything. The mind is exposed, but there is no way to explain. A large, circular hall, in the middle of which is a flying stone. Surrounding it are 6 chairs, each with a changing inscription. Each time someone looks at it, they see it differently. Sometimes it's an image, sometimes it's a feeling, sometimes it's an event that happened years ago. To enter the stone, each of them must send an inner feeling to the stone. Without speaking, Zaina sends her fear of vulnerability, and the stone glows purple. Raphael sends his longing for the image of his brother, and it glows green. When the light is complete in all the colors, the hall explodes with light, and everyone loses consciousness. They wake up in a strange place. A city within a temple, its streets filled with humanoid creatures that don't speak or move much. The buildings are inscribed with symbols resembling heartbeats, and each store evokes a certain feeling. A store that evokes reassurance, a street that evokes panic, a bridge that conveys a sense of loss. They try to interact with the residents, but all they get are complex emotions. One of the creatures approaches Lien and places a piece of paper with an abstract drawing on it on her chest. She understands something strange from him. You have reached the point where what is spoken becomes a betrayal of the truth. They can't find a way out. Every time they try to talk about the fifth temple, their thoughts fade. They know that words themselves have become poisoned, and with every word they utter, a memory is erased. Aziz says, "Exit," and suddenly forgets his mother's face. Panic fills the group. No one dares to even think with an inner voice now. Then a strange creature appears, resembling a humanoid shadow but without features. It points them toward a portal, but makes no sound. The portal is made of pulsating organic tissue, and around it is a colorful inscription: "Whoever seeks the truth, let him enter," stripped of language. To enter, they must abandon all forms of verbal knowledge. Each person is asked to place their hand on a red tablet, and all memories of reading, writing, names, and voices are stripped away. They become mere raw human sensation. Liane collapses, whispering to herself, "But, who will I be?" Then she realizes she didn't understand what she whispered. She no longer understands the words. After entering, they find themselves in a luminous void. Everything is white, but in the midst of the void, threads of light appear, connecting them. Across these threads, they exchange sensations and memories in direct mental images, and then a strange miracle occurs. They all remember the same dream. They were children in the same forest. They saw the same river. They got lost in the same maze. Then a huge being of light appears before them, saying silently, "Your hearts have spoken my language. You are ready to cross over." He opens a time portal, but upon crossing over, their language is restored. After leaving, they arrive at a new land, devoid of trees and filled with steam, but everything around them automatically writes itself. The trees engrave their own names, the rocks write their history, and the water writes its feelings when it touches the body. They understand then that words are not sinful, but must be used according to facts, not illusions. A stone statue appears before them bearing the inscription, "The Fifth Temple." It is not built, but created from within. Upon entering the fifth temple, a massive door opens before them, made of a combination of translucent crystalline stone and trees coiled around it like snakes. Above it is an inscription: "Whoever bears within them the flame of creation, enters to make order out of chaos." Inside the gate, a bright light falls onto a circular platform in the center, and on the platform lie strange tools: a brush, an ink pen, a carving stone, and an open notebook. Aziz advances and fumbles with the tools. And voices begin to whisper, "Draw, create, and begin." Liane approaches the giant painting. It is white, with no trace of it. She closes her eyes and begins drawing soft lines in the air. The lines transform into colors that flow and connect to form a small tree on the canvas. Then an inner voice rings out, "What you are creating is a reflection of yourself, so be careful." They understand that this painting is not just a drawing, but a miniature world shaped by their imaginations. Raphael touches the carved stone and begins to craft a shape. He carves a small bird, but it suddenly comes to life and flies into the room. Tension rises among the group, as each realizes that what they are creating could directly affect the forest beyond. They begin experimenting with small things. Zina creates a small river, Aziz creates a huge boulder that blocks their path, Yorn creates a fog that hides them, but suddenly, the ground shakes and their painted world seems to begin to change dangerously. The large painting shows signs of cracking and sparks of darkness seeping through the colors. Liane realizes that some of their painted creatures are escaping into the real world, but they aren't always friendly. The dark creatures begin to grow, feeding on their fears, and begin attacking the group. This is accompanied by an attack by black shadow-like creatures, but they resemble the creatures they unintentionally painted. The group begins an internal struggle over how to handle this power. Should they use it to control the forest? Or should they try to fix the chaos they've created? Raphael tries to control the shadows through art, painting them in new forms and transforming them into beautiful animals. Zaina calls for calm and advises using the power of creation to heal the land, but Aziz is skeptical, believing that total control is the solution, and conflicts arise. In the midst of the conflict, some spirits temporarily separate from their bodies, entering the forest in ghostly forms, observing the world from a new perspective. Liane discovers that these spirits can see the threads that connect everything, the past, the present, and even the future. Here, the light being they had seen before appears to them, whispering, "Creation begins not only with light, but with the balance of shadows." They realize that nothing can be complete without a balance between creation and destruction, between light and shadow. They begin to pool their strength, working to redraw the picture to reflect this balance. The earth begins to calm down, and the dark creatures transform into guardians who guard the forest's borders. With the rebalancing completed, the temple opens a new portal, this time to the source of the forest itself, to its heart. A mysterious voice says, the sixth temple, where fantasy meets reality. The sixth structure is a massive gateway covered in shimmering gemstones, surrounded by translucent water that reflects the colors of the spectrum. As they cross, the team feels the air grow heavier, and time flows erratically. Ahead of them appears a blurred landscape, strangely shimmering trees, and a horizon blurred between light and darkness. In the center of the earth is a huge, cracked mirror, distorting their images. Each part of the mirror reveals a different aspect of their personalities: courage, fear, hope, and despair. They try to touch the mirror, and lights explode, transporting them to inner worlds, the world of imagination. Inside a fantasy world, they find themselves in a forest similar to their own, but with unfamiliar colors and magical creatures. They are met by imaginary versions of themselves, representing their desires and secrets. Each encounter tests them and invites them to confront their true selves. Imaginary versions challenge their decisions and values. Leon confronts a version of herself who didn't choose adventure but succumbed to routine. Raphael confronts his fear of failure through a version that represents his doubts. Yorn, Zaina, and Aziz encounter situations that reflect their weaknesses and repressed dreams. After passing the tests, the group realizes that fantasy is not just a separate world, but an integral part of reality. They begin building bridges between worlds, enabling them to summon the powers of fantasy into reality. Their powers combine, and mythical beings appear before them, eager to help, but demanding a price. The mythical being demands a price, that they choose one of them to remain in the fantasy world, where he will become a keeper of secrets, never to return. Tension and disagreement begin within the team. Lien suggests that a rope be built to connect the two worlds so that the captive can communicate. After a heated debate, they decide to choose the person with the ability to communicate between the two worlds. Raphael steps forward and accepts the mission. Despite his fear, he bids farewell to the team and begins to transform, leaving a trail of light that connects the two worlds. As Raphael departs, the team senses changes in reality. Some shadows fade and new features of the forest appear. They realize that the journey is far from over, and that the boundaries between fantasy and reality are becoming thinner. They prepare for the final stage, uncovering the origins of the forest and its greatest secrets. The group arrives at a massive gate engraved with ancient symbols, radiating an invisible energy. The air here is heavy, carrying the scent of earth, rain, and antiquity. The door opens slowly, revealing a long, dark corridor lined with stone statues that seem to guard a secret. Inside the corridor, they find a room filled with crystal beds, each containing moving images from the forest's past and their own past. Lien learns the story of the forest. The forest was a living entity, created by ancient spirits to balance good and evil. The forest constantly recreates itself to maintain this balance. They find a message engraved on the wall of the room that reads, "Everyone who enters this temple is part of the forest, and every decision they make shapes its destiny." The group realizes that the tests they have been through were an attempt to select new guardians of the forest. Each of them is asked to make a choice, to become a part of the forest forever, its guardian, or to return to the outside world, but lose all memory of the journey and the powers gained. An internal struggle begins, as self-sacrifice is not easy. Before the choice is made, a mysterious shadow appears, representing the dark side of the forest. They face it in a mental and spiritual battle, revealing their fears and secrets. Each of them overcomes their own shadow, emerging stronger and more articulate. Lien decides to stay and become the new guardian of the forest, vowing to protect it and learn from it. The others choose to return, but with hearts filled with peace and a deeper understanding. Raphael, who has been in a fantasy world, suddenly appears at the forest gate, carrying a message of hope. The group returns to their world, but the forest looks different, more alive, and its secrets are still waiting to be discovered. Each of them carries a new wisdom that changes the way they view the world. The story ends with a shot of Lien standing in the middle of the forest, feeling its pulse, and beginning to build new bridges between humans and nature, between reality and imagination. The forest is not just a place, but a living entity, breathing and living through those who believe in it.